Oh snap! That's cool.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We're live. We went live. Okay, so hey everyone, welcome to another live chat, Name and Progress number 9, I believe, if I haven't skipped yet another number. With me, Georgie, and Baker. So Beards and Board Games and Board.
We're live. We went live. Okay, so okay, I'm gonna have to get headphones. Give me a second.
No problem. It's actually, I think that was the background. Is that working now?
Oh, okay, yeah, everything's fine now. What was that?
That might have been the YouTube.
Oh, you had the YouTube going?
I was checking the sound, yeah, but I always forget to allow it. Anyway, Georgie from Beards and Board Games, Baker from Board Online, Board Offline. Baker's eventually figured out how to get a lower third as well, so congratulations. Today we're going to have a guest, Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules, the YouTube channel and podcast. So he's going to join us probably in a couple of minutes or so. Just before he joins us, I thought we would just take it off with saying, Baker, you been playing anything?
Yes, actually, right now my computer is sitting on top of my Pandemic Legacy board because I haven't taken it down from when we played it yesterday. So we are finally back into Pandemic Legacy. We're taking a break. We played our last game December 17th, 5 days before the baby was born. And then we just haven't gotten back into it because of the new baby, you know. And now we've played 3 games in 3 days, so we're officially back into it. And it is amazing because we just had a serious plot twist. I'm not going to say what month the plot twist happens in, but we just had a serious plot twist, and it's really got us sucked back in. So playing that, and also for all you Legacy haters, I hate to tell you, I also have purchased Risk Legacy and have gotten to play of that in, and that's pretty interesting as well. And hopefully playing a bunch more of that. It's actually been a slow month for gaming for the most part. I've played a bunch of different things, but the main thing has been Legacy.
Well,
what about you, Georgie?
Well, you'll be happy to know, Baker. You'll be really happy to know that I have also played some Pandemic Legacy.
What?
I know, right? I didn't purchase it though. Breck, one of the guys from the board game club, and he's also become. We're going down to the expo together. Had it for a while, but wanted to wait until he sort of had a consistent group of 4 that was there. So now that we have a consistent group of 4 to play it, we basically went in for one day, played 5 games in a row.
Man, oh wait, we have our Paul's here.
Hey.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
I'm all right. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I had problems warming the laptop up.
No, you're good. You're good.
That's all right. Technology at its best, right?
Yes, definitely.
We were just quickly going through things that we've been playing. So yeah, I played some Pandemic Legacy. I played some Odin's Ravens a good couple of times because me and my wife are really enjoying that. We played Cult Express. Quite a few. Machikoro. I've played quite a lot of games. I wish I'd written them all down. Cards Against Valeria cards. Oh, what's that called?
Yeah, Valeria Kingdoms or something or other.
What is that?
The one just before that. It's basically Machikoro, but with like monsters and knights.
Okay. Now, what do you think of Machikoro? Because I've heard nothing good about it from gamers who play the sort of games that I play. It's basically it's a very light family game with lots of randomness, and apparently the base game's got a broken strategy, so you need the expansion to fix it. That's about all I know.
That is pretty much it, to be honest.
Okay, I'll avoid that one then.
To be fair, once the Harbour expansion is there, it's really fun, and it does add like an element of just sort of wild chance because you're just rolling 2 dice, but you do get to sort of make the choice: am I going to roll 1? Am I going to roll 2? There's a few choices you make there, but it kind of quickly, if you build up the right sort of city or village or Machikoro, I guess you call it, then you just become a really mean player who just takes everyone's gold every single turn, regardless of what they do. Okay. So, but it's a fun game. It's pretty.
I gotta go pour some cereal.
No problem, Baker. But yeah, it's okay. I think I did kind of prefer it to Valeria, but other than that, it's okay. I wouldn't recommend it because I know you're more into your sort of heavier Euro games, Paul, right?
Yeah, sort of. Well, anywhere between medium and medium heavy is sort of my preference. But yeah, with hundreds of games out there to play, something like that, I when I've got plenty of other games that are still lighter or still shorter games, I've got plenty of 50 to 30-minute games that are really enjoyable and really good to play. So when I've got those, I don't really see the need for me to go to ones which are, pretty random and very light. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But Pandemic Legacy, we're due to start on Thursday. I'm late for the party. I realise that, but yes, this Thursday we're due to start. And since I've not played the base Pandemic in about 4 years, that's going to be interesting. So
I'm sure you'll pick it up really quickly, and
Yeah.
it changes pretty. There's a lot of changes in it anyway when you're playing it, so it's really exciting. To be fair, it wasn't a game that I was diving into play either, but when like I said, one of my friends, Brett, got it, and he's kind of desperate to play it. And then once we started playing it, I am really stoked to continue to play it. We played 5 games. So I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. But
Yeah.
I'm really so far. Storyline's really interesting. Did you ever play Risk Legacy, Paul?
Risk is one of those games which I now put on the I will never play this again. I'm aware that Risk Legacy does bring a new element to the game, but now that Pandemic Legacy's out and now Legacy's going to be the new big thing, yeah, I'm happy not to bother with Risk Legacy, but I'm looking forward to Pandemic Legacy. I don't think it will be my #1 favourite game, ever, like a lot of people. I'm sure I will thoroughly enjoy the experience, but as for whether it's the best game ever designed, yeah, I'm not sure about that. So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing your thoughts, actually, so maybe send a tweet or two or give us a message about how you feel about it when you start playing it as well, Paul.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just go. Paul, have you been playing anything recently before we start a little interview?
Yeah, I mean, I just did my latest podcast, which went up yesterday, where I cover all the things I've been playing in the last 2 weeks. I've just got to try and remember. What have I been playing of note? Well, things that I didn't mention in the podcast. I played another couple of games of 504, which I've played probably 10 or 11 different versions of now. One of them was a world I'd already played, so that was a teaching game where I taught some other people, and we used 163. Then we tried something different. In fact, it was at Bacon, which is a gaming convention down in Exeter. It's been running for 30 years. And 2 groups of people played 504 on adjacent tables, and we both played the same world. And what that meant is that we could both struggle through learning the rules of how to play that world together. And we played, I think it was 846. So yes, we both played 846, which, like many other worlds, was unusual, and we were reading through the rules going, is this really how it works? And then we started playing and we was like, oh right, oh okay, and then the game was over. So yeah, so that's one of the things I've played.
You don't sound like you would rate that 504 too highly there.
Yeah, 504 is one of my favourite games from last year. I really rate it. If you're into that game, if you get together with a few friends and you sit down and you play World 846, and then you get excited about the fact that you're going to play 845 because, oh my god, yeah, that's like 846, but with exploring as well. Oh yeah, that's really cool. If you enjoy, science experiments, because reading through that rule book and the world book is like, it's like deciphering some hieroglyphics. And if you enjoy dissecting a game and literally basically playing a game with all these different modules and variants and plugins and everything else and exploring the possibilities, then that's the kind of game that you'll like. If you just want to sit down and play a great game out of the box, then it isn't that. And none of the 504 worlds that are included in there are great games. But the strength of the game comes with the fact that you can take out one module, put another module in, and it tweaks the way the game plays, and just enjoy that exploring it. So I'm still enjoying exploring 504, but it does mean that sometimes you'll play a world and it'll be like, well, yeah, that one wasn't so good, but move that one to one side and then play a different one.
How many worlds would you say you've played so far?
I think I've got a checklist and I am ticking them off. I think I've played 11 different worlds, which sounds a lot. I mean, I've played the game probably 15 times now, teaching various people and experimenting. Right. So I've played 11 different worlds. And then when you think about it, 11 different worlds, that's like, what, 2%? And it's like, oh, right, okay, I've only completed 2%.
Do any of those stand out to you so far? Or like, as this one, I definitely more than the others?
163 is a very good, I mean, it recommends 123 as the beginning game, and I generally would always recommend that one, because the rules for 123 are split over 2 pages. You don't even need to open the world book. You don't need to read any of the 30 pages of the different worlds. You just open the rule book, turn to the 2 pages that say, here's how you play 1, 2, 3, and that's all you need. So I'd always recommend that one. If somebody knows how to play, then I would recommend 163 instead. That's a bit more, it's a bit more of a gamer's game, and there's a bit more going on in it. So they're good ones to start with. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, it depends what you like. I mean, I like pick up and deliver as a mechanism, so anything with World 1 in it is good. I like exploring as a mechanism, so anything with World 5 in is good. And it really does allow you sort of tailor the game to the taste of your group. If nobody likes pick up and deliver, don't play Module 1. If everybody likes Module 9 kind of thing. So, yeah, there's lots of good ones out there.
Yeah, that's a game that I'm very interested in giving a shot. It's one that I have a hard time convincing myself to purchase before I've had a chance to play it, which is difficult because I only have one game store around here, and they're really more of a they focus more on being a place for people to come and play, and not so much on having a massive quantity of games to buy. So for me to get them to have it, I'd actually have to order it through them, and so I'd have to buy it anyway.
Yeah, so, and it's an expensive game. You know, it's not a cheap game, but I still class it as one of the best value for money games that I bought at Essen last year because of, you know, the sheer amount of replayability, but also the amount of stuff you get in the box. You know, there's loads and loads and loads of wood.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there. When I watched Tom do Tom Vassell do his review, and I think he did a component drop for that one, but I just remember even in just his explanation of the game, how much room it took on that table. So, yeah there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one I would definitely recommend playing before buying because you might play it, you play one of the worlds and you go, was that it? And you might be completely underwhelmed. And as I say, most people have that impression. You know, they play the game and you think, wow, this was a 60 quid game that's got this massive rule book and it's really complex. And you sit down, you play it, it takes 90 minutes and you're like, is that it? And it's like, well, yeah, that one world, that is it. But now, think of the possibility of taking out the road building and putting in exploration instead. Right. It's, as I say, that's what makes the game.
Cool.
Yeah. I kind of like what you said as well, Paul. You can like suit it to the group that you're playing with. So if people really don't like this one style of game, then you can just try and ignore that completely and then set up another one. To be honest, the closest I came to even playing it was I picked up the box and I was, wow, that's not light. Read the back of it, thought that kind of sounded cool, and I was like, well, the price tag's quite. No, I'll leave it at the moment. But I'm still very tempted by it, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those games as well as I see once I've got this weird feeling that once it disappears, that it might take a while for it ever to come back again.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, Stronghold, if it sells out and there's a demand for more copies, Stronghold will definitely reprint it. Yeah. I just don't know. It's not really a niche market, but it is more of a niche than most other games I think that came out. There's a lot of people that really get it and really like it, and then there's a lot of people that just don't really like it. I mean, you could say that about all games, but I think this one possibly more than others. So,
probably it's a game that relies on people knowing what they're getting when they buy it, as opposed to somebody just going to the store saying, "Oh, that looks cool," picking it up. Because if somebody does that without realizing what they're buying, they might be a little put off when they get home. So yeah, it definitely is going to be more people in the hobby that know what this game is that are probably going to get behind it and really get excited about it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I was excited about it last year is because I think last year was great for innovation. I mean, we had Pandemic Legacy, which is taking the legacy mechanic of Risk Legacy one step further. We had Time Stories, which is not, it's just completely different. And 504, we've never had anything like it before. We'll probably never have anything like it again. That, for me, was the most innovative game of last year. And it was exciting just because it was so different. Yeah, anyway, I've banged on about 504 enough. Other games I've played recently, La Granja, which I always like playing, Elysium, which I've been playing quite a bit of. All sorts of things. Yeah, a good mix.
I've heard really good things about Elysium, and to be honest, I think it's going to be one of the next purchases I get. I looked at it the last time I was in my game store. I'm in there tomorrow, actually, as well. So I have a weird feeling I'm going to walk out with it if it's still on the shelf.
Right.
Still. So it looks like a really fun game, and the mechanics look kind of different to a lot that I've seen before.
Well, yeah, the bit that's different and interesting about the game is that you have two major decisions to make on your turn. It's card drafting from a common pool of cards. So first of all, it's which card do you take? Okay, that's the first decision that you have to make. And there are certain restrictions because the cards have colour requirements, and you have to have those colours in order to take the card. Okay, so you take the card. Right, your next decision is which of your 4 columns do you lose? And the trick with the game is if a card means that you have to have a blue column to take it, you don't have to spend the blue column to take it. You can basically lose any of your columns. So what you've got to do is you make the first decision of which card you take, and the second decision is which coloured column do you then lose. So what you've got to do, you've got to look at the board and you've got to write, okay, well, there's not many yellow cards. In fact, there's only one, and I don't really want that one, so I'll lose the yellow one, which means you can then not buy anything that requires yellow. But there are the quests, and you can really get screwed over in the game. So if you're down to 2 columns and you've only got your red and your blue one left, and there's only one quest, and sorry, the 2 quests left are red and green, then I will take the red quest, which means you then can't take a quest because you've only got blue left. That's really good. For me, it's got the perfect level of interaction between the players. It's not deliberately attacking the other players, but it's like, oh right, well if I take this one, then you're a bit yeah, and you can do that, and it's really clever, really interesting. The artwork's gorgeous, gameplay's good. The first thing that's daunting is when you play it, you'll lay out the 13 cards in the Agora, and you'll be like, oh my god, right, we've now got to read every single one of these cards and what they do. But once you've played it a couple of times, and a lot of the cards are very similar, it's like, oh, that's the equivalent of this one, but in a different colour. Right, fine, I know that one. But yeah, I do recommend that game.
That game looks really nice. I definitely want to get
that. It does sound really, really interesting. I think we'll just crack on at the moment because before we start talking about games, obviously Paul wasn't with us. He was running a little bit late because of computer issues, technology running at its best, I think we said. So, Paul, first of all, do you want to give us a little introduction to yourself and your channels?
So, well, my name's Paul Grogan, and people may know me from my Gaming Rules, ! Videos, podcast. I do all sorts of stuff. So I've got my own YouTube channel, which is Gaming Rules Videos, which is primarily tutorial videos on how you actually play games. However, I have done a few reviews as well. My third one went up yesterday, which was Discoveries, the Lewis and Clark dice game. So yeah, so I'm primarily a tutorial channel, and what I actually do is the videos I create are ones that are commissioned by the publishers. So they normally take me anywhere between 50 and 100 hours to create because I use digital graphics and animation. I fully script them. I mean, it takes a good 2 days to write the script, test the script, check the script with the designer or the publisher, tweak it and everything else, run it past a couple of people. What I do is I set the board up with all the components, and then I literally read through the script that I've read to somebody who doesn't know how to play the game, usually my girlfriend, pointing bits on the board, which is what I would show on screen, and then by the end of it, I say, right, do you now know how to play Tolkien? And she says, yeah, but I didn't understand the bit about the buildings. Right, I go back to the script, redo the script, and make sure it's clear. So a lot of work goes into the scripting, then the filming, the editing, and all the digital animations as well, so that the end product is a fairly professional one. And as I say, I'm being paid by the publishers of the game to do these as the official rules videos. Yeah. So that's the main thing that I'm known for. As I say, I do some reviews as well. They're more of a personal thing that I don't get paid for. I've got my own podcast, which has been going for just over a year now. Just done episode 32, and it's usually once every couple of weeks. And again, that's not paid for or anything. That's purely my stuff. But I try and get on some good guests. The other things that I do, which is in the background that a lot of people probably don't know about, is I'm doing a lot of rulebook writing and editing at the moment. So not a lot of people go to the back of a rulebook and go, oh, I wonder who the editor was. But by the end of this year, I will have probably had my name. I mean, I don't know. I've done 5 already this year. So yeah, I'm doing quite a lot of that, and that's stuff that takes a lot of time. It's in the background, and as I say, most people wouldn't be aware that I'm doing it, but that's one of the things that I'm doing, as well as game development and all sorts of other things. Really, it's I mean, it is a full-time job and then some, and sometimes I struggle to fit everything in. So, but I just about get it done.
Well, you sound like you've had probably a busier year than I had last year, and you're only 4 months in.
Yeah, this has been a bit unusual because I got really ill, and I don't get ill. You know, I fight off so many colds. You know, you get that, oh, I've got this funny thing in the back of my throat, and oh, I'm sneezing a bit, and I'm run down, and the next day I'm fine. Whereas a lot of other people come down with a cold, so I don't normally get ill. And then it was about 6 weeks ago where I actually got proper flu. And if you've ever had proper flu, rather than people just saying, "Oh, I've got a bad cold, so I've got flu," it's like, right, I was gone for 3 days, didn't eat, couldn't even watch TV. I was that in a state. And then it actually took me a good couple of weeks to recover because I was just, you know, it knocked me for 6. I was drained and exhausted, and I couldn't really bring myself to doing any video work or anything like that. So yeah, I'm still trying to catch up with things, but yeah, it's a busy job, which is good.
Yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like everything that you're doing as far as, I mean, your podcast's awesome. I listen to it every time I discovered it when it was actually on your separate website that you do for it to start with, but then I noticed you started to put them on YouTube as well now.
Yes. Yeah, about 5 or 6 episodes ago, and a couple of people had actually mentioned this to me in the past. They said, "Oh, you should put your podcast on YouTube," and I thought, well, why? Because it's audio content only. It's not. There's no visual content to it. So why should I spend? I mean, at the end of the day, it's more time. And as I say, the podcasts and the reviews, I'm having to take time away from the paid work, effectively losing money in order to do that. So I thought, why would I want to do more? And a couple of people had mentioned it, and I was like, and then I thought, oh, hang on a minute, I'm using Premiere Pro to edit the podcast. Surely I could just put some, like, you know, pictures of the games that I'm talking about over the top, and then just resave it as a different file. So I did it, and I'm happy that I did it, because what it did is a number of regular listeners said, we actually prefer watching this on YouTube. Great. But also the people who subscribed to my YouTube channel who didn't realize I did a podcast now do realize I did a podcast, and they're now regular listeners as well. And in fact, in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, there's about 3 other podcasts in America that are now doing the same thing. They're now putting theirs on YouTube. So Heavy Cardboard are now doing theirs. What Did You Play This Week podcast are doing theirs. And I saw a message yesterday, I think it was maybe Cardboard Jungle, but one of the other ones. So a few people have now thought, oh,
Dice Tower's doing it as well. They just started doing it a few months ago.
Right. So yeah, it's on YouTube as well, which, as I say, seems unusual for a podcast, but some people do prefer watching it on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to know as well, because not everyone's always keeping their eye on Twitter or on Facebook, all these other things. And with Twitter as well, from my impression is, if you follow like 50 people, it's easy to miss stuff. So if you follow more than that, which most people do, it's, you know, so as far as YouTube goes, it just appears in your subscriptions, and like I know the day it's up. So I'm just like, yeah, cool, I can stick it on and just listen to it in the background. And you know what else I really like about your podcast, Paul? Not trying to blow your trumpet or anything, I'll say that now. It's, the length of it, it's not like totally drawn out, it's not like super long, it never goes on for too long. And I think there was one episode that was quite long, but it was justifiably long, and it's still really interesting. So, you know, I just think you're doing a great job with your podcast, and your gaming rules videos, like, I've watched a few of them are for like quite heavy games than I would usually play, but when I watch them, I actually leave and I think, I could watch that, I could play that afterwards now that I've watched your review, your tutorial.
I think one of the things about it was when I got asked to do the rules video for Vinyos, which was launching on Kickstarter. So they wanted it for Kickstarter, but actually they wanted it not just for Kickstarter. They wanted it to be, here's the official rules video of how you play Vinyos. Yeah. And I spoke to Vita Lacerda, and I said, look, you know, I've done these overview videos in the past, because the one I did for the Gallerist was a 6-minute overview. I said, I prefer to actually do the full rules of the game rather than just an overview. And we talked about it, and we said, yeah. And I said, but it's going to be a longer video. And when I sat down to do it, I thought, right, Vinyos, it's one of the heaviest games I've got in my collection. I don't know how long this video is really going to be. And I
Yeah.
did it in 20 minutes. And that video has been watched by people who didn't know how to play Vinyos at all. By the end of it, they know how to play. And I went, 20 minutes is not a long time to learn how to play that heavy a game. If I was to sit down and teach you how to play Vinyos at the table, it would probably take me 30 minutes, because you'll ask questions and things like that. So, yeah, I was surprised at how I managed to get all of that done in 20 minutes. So, yeah.
No, it's really good, and it is really enjoyable to watch as well. But like I said, it's immersive as well, and I find myself like really listening and paying attention when you're going through the rules, which is always good, because sometimes there can be a few. Sometimes when people be explaining rules, or particularly if it's like reviewers like myself, when we like quickly explain rules, sometimes you're not listening too much and you're more interested in what their opinion is at the end, and you just kind of want to see like a quick glance overview of what the actual game is. So it's really interesting to see your rules videos, and I really enjoy them. So there, I think that's a pretty good introduction to Paul's game.
That's what I
do. So I guess, when did you start your was it your podcast or your YouTube channel you started first?
Yeah, YouTube channel was first. Oh, right. Well, I mean, the first ever video that I did, and if I look back at it now, I'll be a bit embarrassed by it, because I've no background in digital animation, motion graphics, or anything like that whatsoever. Film production, nothing. No experience whatsoever. And I decided, and this must be about 2.5, 3 years ago now, that I wanted to do something like this. I love teaching people how to play games. When I go to Essen and Gen Con and I work at the CGE booth, constantly teaching people how to play games all the time, I do it because I love it. I just love teaching games. And this has always been the case for, even when I look back at when I was like 13, 14, I'd be teaching people how to play games then. And I've always been known as the guy in the group that generally teaches people. And I love doing it. So I thought, why don't I create a series of videos on YouTube on teaching people how to play games? And I started with Vlada Shvatel's Tashkalar. And this was I wasn't paid to do that video. This was me as an experiment. How am I going to do this? How am I going to teach people, visually how to play a game? And then I sent it to CGE, and they were very happy with it, and they said, yeah, we'd like you to do more videos like this for us, but obviously we don't expect you to do them for free. We will happily pay you to create these videos for us. So that was that was going back probably maybe 2.5 years now. I've lost sort of track of time. But at the time, I had a job. So I was a full-time IT manager at a university. But the job wasn't really going the way that I liked. There was a number of issues with the workplace where I was at, and I was kind of not very happy with the situation. And the work that I was doing, not just the videos, but the work that I was doing with a couple of games companies was getting more and more. So I was doing a lot of work with CGE. I'd started to do some work for What's Your Game, helping them with various things. And I ended up working, weekends, mornings before I went to work, evenings after work, and I just thought, right, this is a bit silly. Something's got to give here. Yeah. What do I enjoy doing the most? And then over a few months period, it was one of the biggest decisions of my life. It's, do I go to working a 40-hour week earning salary X to working a 70-hour week with salary X divided by 3? And that's what I decided to do. So financially, the worst decision I've ever made. But but it was a big decision. But when I started it, I still had the job, and what I was doing, I was basically doing 2 jobs at once, because I had absolutely no idea whether I'd be able to make this work. It's a nice idea, and everybody says, "Oh, I'd love to work in the games industry," but then when you actually sit down and look at it, and you think, "Okay, well, this month I've earned £300. Well, that doesn't even pay the mortgage," so I had to basically try and do both jobs at the same time as an experiment to see if there was enough work coming in that I would be able to give up my job. And then I did that for about 6 months, where I basically didn't see anybody or do anything or sleep. And then after the 6 months, and tell you what, this is I'm getting enough people coming to me asking for work that I think I'll do it. And I left my actual job in January 2015. So officially, I went full-time for Gaming Rules at the end of January 2015. But as I say, for the 6 months before that, I was producing content, doing work in the evenings and weekends. So still relatively new.
Now, do you do Kickstarter for Gaming Rules or any sort of crowdfunding at all, or is it solely you are funded by the people who hire you to do the videos?
It's solely that. There's a couple of reasons for that. I have very strong morals. Whether those morals fit in with the rest of the world, I don't know. But I have my own, guiding light that I live my life by. I'm not religious at all. I've just got my own thing. And if a company pays me an hourly rate to create a video for their game,
right,
for me to then charge other people through crowdfunding or anything like that, that feels wrong. That I don't know. It's like getting paid twice for doing the work. So I don't like that. But I have considered something like a Patreon or whatever because, as I say, the reviews that I do, the podcast that I do, and things like that, and I provide lots of help for people. If anybody out there in Twitter land or Facebook land or Board Game Geek is playing a game which I know how to play, I will jump in and offer them help with rules questions and things like that. All of that takes time. I mean, I love doing it, but it takes time.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I have considered some kind of Patreon account or something like that to cover the podcast. But my concern is that people go, oh yeah, Paul Grogan, he's the guy that makes those Gaming Rules instructional videos. I like them, they're really good. I'll give him a few dollars a month to keep doing it. And I'm like, I already get paid for doing that. I don't want you to, so I've shied away from it for the moment. Yeah.
Makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense, to be honest. That's exactly where you're coming from. I think, like you said, you do a couple of reviews on your podcast certainly as well. But I mean, that's all free stuff that you do, but it's all still really, really interesting stuff. So, but I still see where you're coming from. If people start getting them not confused as such, but thinking that they're giving you money for your rules videos when in fact the money goes for the podcast, the BG help, things like that. So I see where your models lie there. So one of the other questions I had. So you started working for CGE because you did a Gaming Rules video, right? So what is it that you?
Well, my work for CGE started. Oh gosh, what year did Dungeon Lords come out? 2008, maybe.
Yeah.
2009, something like that. So I've been working for CGE for many years, but it's purely voluntary. They gave me a few copies of each of their games, which I then sold to my friends. But that was just a sort of token gesture. I was helping with rulebook editing. I was doing because CG was my favourite company. As soon as they, and Vladia was my favourite designer. They hit the scene with Through the Ages, absolutely blew me away. I was like, wow, this is amazing. The next year they had Galaxy Trucker and League of Six, which are both excellent games, and I thought, right, this is a publisher that I want to keep an eye on because I'd been going to Essen since I think 99 or 2000. I've lost track. But I'd been going to Essen for quite some years when CG, appeared. And I thought, right, this is a company I want to keep an eye on because everything they're doing, the games are really good, the production is really good. It's clearly a lot of work has gone into these games in the development of them. And then basically I introduced myself to them, said hello, and I was just a fanboy. I was just like, I love your games, I think it's great what you do. And then I said, look, if you ever to do any demos of your games at some of the UK gaming events, because I go to them and run on a regular basis, then I'd be more than happy to do that. And they said, oh yeah. And then I started helping them a little bit with rule books, and then they started sending me prototypes of the games for me to play and help with and things like that. And it just got more and more and more. And I got to know the guys, and although they are effectively a client of mine, I've become friends with most of them. So I chat to them on a non-work related basis as well as a few times. It was only when the Gaming Rules thing started that the boss of CG actually sat down with me and said, look, you're doing more and more work for us. Every month you are doing so much. We cannot carry on letting you do this. without actually giving you something for it. And I was, and in my mind, I was thinking, well, that's interesting because I'm actually planning on leaving my job and trying to make a job out of this. So it all sort of happened at roughly the same time. But yeah, my work for CGE has been for quite a few years.
So it was just recently. Sorry, Georgia. You might have. It was just recently, about the same time you quit your job, was when they actually hired you on, officially hired you on.
Yeah, roughly about the same time.
When you did Mage Knight, when you edited the Mage Knight rulebook, that was all just.
That was
I'm
free.
helping out.
Yeah, and that Mage Knight rulebook. Wow. I mean, there's things that I can tell you about that Mage Knight rulebook.
Well, I heard you on a different podcast. I think I don't know if it was Brawling Brothers or Boards Alive. I can't remember which one you were on, but I heard your interview there talking about kind of when you got that Word document initially, and you could tell people here about it a little bit too, but that was something else.
I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about it, but basically Vlaja had written the rulebook, and Vlaja, for me, and I'm not just saying this because he's my boss and I'm a fan, but he's one of the best rulebook writers out there, both in the construction of the rulebook and how it works out. And he wrote it out as a Word document, sent it to WizKids. WizKids went through it and everything else. But then the guy at WizKids, I think, that was doing it was on his last week there working, and he sent it back to Vlaja, and Vlaja was like, right, you've rewritten bits and you've changed the meaning of them. So it now doesn't, it might be correct English now, but you've actually changed the way that it all works and everything else. So I got given this Word document with track changes turned on with 3 different people's comments all over it, and it was like, wow, okay, this is going to be a nightmare. But yeah, we did that. Obviously, you've got the time pressures because it's got to go to print, and then when we even did the layout and we turned it into a PDF, it was just a nightmare. I mean, it's a massive rulebook with a lot of small text, and I ended up taking a week off work, and I probably was doing the editing of it 8 to 10 hours a day, every day for a week, just multiple versions. The amount of time and effort that goes into a rulebook is not to be underestimated. And when you see some companies produce rulebooks that are not very good, where you can't really understand how to play, or it's got lots of errors in it, or things like that, it's because they haven't taken the amount of time that a good rulebook does take, and it is a big thing. But Mage Knight, when I got it, I think my quote was, "This is the game I've waited my whole life for." It's a fantasy adventure game going around, killing monsters, getting XP, but with no dice, and such clever mechanisms, deck building used in an amazing way. I just everything about it, just loved it.
Right now, it's definitely my favorite game, and it's possibly my favorite game of all time at this point.
Cool.
And I'm reading the forums once I got it, because I just got it 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay,
I think
right.
2 months ago. Finally got, cause it was one of those games. I've only been in the hobby for about 3 years, so I didn't want to jump into that too soon and not like it. But and I had prepared myself for this rule book that was almost impossible to comprehend, but based on the forums and stuff. And then I get it, and it actually, I'm reading it the digital version first, and it actually I thought was for a game with a 40-page rule book. When you combine the two, it's 40 pages. It's fairly easy to understand, and it's not that difficult to search through it later. Now, granted, I will use the digital version so I can type in a word and find it real fast. Yeah. But once you know the layout and understand it, you can find what you're looking for. And I don't know. I don't know how much of that is based off of your editing it together, and how much was Vlada initially. But I don't have a huge problem with the rule book, and I love the game, and the rule book itself is a big part of being able to love the game, because those rules, you're always searching through. Even now I'm 13 plays in, I think, and I still have to look for rules occasionally. But yeah. It's a great game.
No, all of that rulebook work was pretty much Vlaja. The content, the structure, and how it was all laid out, and the walkthrough manual, I think, is one of the best walkthrough manuals in the game. You just literally open it up and follow it step by step, and it takes you through that first game. By the end of that first game, 80% of how to play Mage Knight.
It even explains what to explain to people and when. Like, it's like, don't tell them about this yet. Yeah. Tell them this, and this, and in a few minutes we'll tell them about this too.
Yeah. Oh, you've now discovered a keep. Right. I'll now explain how the rules for the keeps work. I mean, when I'm demoing Mage Knight, I love demoing Mage Knight. I basically say to people, right, this is going to take about 2.5 hours, and I am going to be teaching you the rules for the next 2.5 hours. Okay, this isn't a game where I teach you the rules and then you play it. Literally, this entire experience, every sort of 10-15 minutes, I will be teaching you another rule because something will have happened and I need to explain it. But if you're ready for that, let's dive in, and by the end of it, you'll know mostly how to play. The tricky part comes is once you've played that walkthrough scenario, and you then think, right, let's do full conquest, and then you need to read the city combat. The city combat isn't in the walkthrough, it's in the full rulebook, where it's in like very shorthand, bullet point, and yeah, it can be a bit tricky. So
yeah, that's true.
Well, I guess, like talking about the what you were saying, like demoing for like UK Games events and things like that. So you're going to the UK Games Expo this year as well. You're running the CGE booth.
I'm terrified. If I can give you an exclusive on the show, I'm terrified. Because
we have an exclusive. Yeah.
I've been doing CG demos at UK Games Expo. I think this is the 5th year, and you might think, well, why am I terrified? I've been doing it for the last 4 years. Well, I have a couple of tables, and me and a mate of mine, or last year a couple of mates of mine, get there and we teach people how to play games. And that's it. It's nice and simple. It's just what I love doing. No pressure. Well, I mean, it's really, really busy. It's absolutely, solid, packed out, non-stop talking. Yeah. This year, because of the success of Codenames, financially for the company, when I went to Essen last year and I met with CG and the guys from UK Games Expo, and we said, look, because UK Games Expo this year is changing, and in fact I interviewed Richard Denning on my last podcast about UK Games Expo, and because we're moving to the NEC for the exhibitors halls, it's kind of taking it up a notch. So I had a meeting with UK Games Expo people at Essen, and the boss of CG was there, and I said, right, well, in the past we've just had like a sort of 3 meter by 2 meter area, and we've had a couple of tables to do demos. Yeah. What are we looking at this year? And they went through their plans for how the halls were going to be laid out. And I spoke to Petter, and I said to him, how much space can I have at UK Games Expo this year? And he turned around to me and said, how much space do you want at UK Games Expo this year? And I'm like, oh, right. Oh, okay, it's like that, is it? And I said, well, it's up to you. You're paying for it. And he went, yeah, but you decide how much space you think CG should have. And I was like, oh, right. So we've got a 5 meter by 5 meter area. We've got 5 tables, 20 chairs, and I'm responsible for the whole thing. And I'm going to need a demo team of 4 or 5 people at all times, which I've got. I've got it all sorted. Yeah. But suddenly it becomes a little bit more important than a couple of tables and me and a mate teaching people how to play games. It's like running a proper booth. And I'm sure once I've done it once, it'll be like, yeah, fine. But it's just the first year of doing it. So yeah, I'm a bit nervous about it.
I'm sure you'll be fine, Paul. Really, like you said, you've done it a few times in the past anyway. But just because this is a bigger one, I'm sure you'll love it just the same. Yeah, we're just having such a good time. But I know what you mean. It's probably like quite an intimidating feeling. I look forward to coming over and checking out the booth and saying hi to you and everything when we get in there.
Yeah. Well, we need to sort out a proper time where you can come over and have an official slot where I can show you the stuff rather than you just milling around and finding a position at a time. But we can talk about this off air. But yeah, I'll book you in for a specific time.
Yeah, it sounds brilliant, Paul.
Yeah.
So I guess the one last thing that we have to say, Les Baker, have you got anything else that you want to speak to Paul about?
No, I got to have my fanboy moment with the Mage Knight stuff, so I'm good now.
And I got to talk about Mage Knight, which is always enjoyable.
Okay, so Paul, do you want to give us one more sort of hashtag shameless plugging, as I always like to call it at the end of the show, just with your website and everything again, where they can find you, your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is Gaming Rules Videos. Twitter is Gaming Rules Vids. Facebook is Gaming Rules Videos. The website is gaming-rules.com. I think that's probably everything. I mean, if people want to get in contact with me, any of those methods work. There's a contact form on my website. And I've got a guild over on Board Game Geek, which is guild number 2258, for those people who know how to find guilds and join them, because it's
Dude,
not
it is
the
difficult to
easiest
find
thing to
guilds.
do.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, Baker, do you want to give us a quick shameless plug?
Yeah. You can find me over on. I guess my main spot is YouTube, Board Online, Board Offline, spelled the way you see in my lower third that I finally have working. And I also have a guild that I believe we have 12 members now, so we're in the double digits. That's exciting. And on Twitter at Board Offline.
Awesome. And as usual, Beards and Board Games for me. Catch me on Twitter at Beards and Boards. I BGG, Beards and Board Games, all the other stuff. I think we'll cut it short there because I've got to go to work pretty soon. So, Paul, thanks for joining us. Baker, thanks for getting up so early again. And we'll catch you guys later.
Thanks very much for having me on the show.
Just trying to get off live now.